From JA to UK to LA and everywhere else now, this is a podcast strictly influenced by Jamaican music, brought to you by Eric Kohler and Junor Francis. Well, if you're driving in your car or you're sitting home alone, the Junior entertain you on his microphone. The history of LA Ska. Yeah, hear stories from a guest while we all have a blast. From LA to Jamaica, it's in the podcast. The history of LA Ska. Of LA Ska, yeah. It's the history. Yes, it is. Of LA Ska. History of LA Ska, yeah. It's the history. Yes, it is. Of LA Ska. Of LA Ska. It's the history of LA Ska. One more time, yeah. It's the history of LA Ska.
Yes, welcome to the History of LA Ska one-on-one session. I'm your host, Junor Francis, alongside our producer, my good friend Eric Kohler. This session celebrates the ska, rocksteady, and vintage reggae scene in Southern California and beyond through insightful conversations with modern-day talent, including those behind the scene. So whether you listen to this podcast series or watch us on YouTube, we want to thank you immensely. And please remember to subscribe and tell all your friends to do likewise. The innovative and multiracial special, perfectly, rather innovatively then fused funk, reggae, ska, and often social, political, and commentary. Yes, their influence around the world is immense and unmatched. And this special episode, we welcome none other than the legendary bass player, Sir Horace Panter of the Specials, as well as general public and among other groups, Special Beat. Welcome, sir. Yes, and I was meant to understand that the name Sir was given to you by Linval.
That's right. That's right. That's right, Junior. No, when we met, I had a very what they call a plummy accent. I spoke quite proper Queen's English, so I was bestowed this, and also I had good manners. I said please, and I still do. So that was so it was gentleman. So it was Sir Horace Gentleman. That's how it's.
Yes.
Amazing.
But yes, it was Linval who bestowed me that honor.
Wow. Well, Horace, it's an honor to be talking with you today. And Junior, thank you for that intro. I'll also add, obviously, the Specials infused punk as well, clearly. And one of the most influential to this day. And Horace, we had the pleasure of briefly meeting. We were talking off air, but you and I briefly met at the Musax tribute to your longtime friend and bandmate Terry Hall. That was October of 2023 out here in Los Angeles. And it was amazing. What stuck out the most from that event?
I think it was the love that there was for Terry in the crowd, and not just from on stage as well, but it was just fabulous playing with the guys from Fishbone, I think, and they brought the kind of chaos that it would like a 1979 Specials performance. The only band that I was ever worried about sharing a stage with was Fishbone.
Wow!
The only band, and we got to play with them a few years, not so long ago, up in some winery up in Silicon Valley. And before they went on, Norwood, a bass player, came up to me, sat down next to me, and he goes, "Horace, you don't know what you guys did back in the day." And he goes, "We were these black guys. We were into Devo. We went to see Dance Craze, and we formed a band." And I was like, wow, that was like, what what an acknowledgement, I mean, because Norwood is a monster player. I mean, those guys are absolutely. They said that they were a cross between Parliament Funkadelic and the Specials.
Yeah, right.
And I'd never really sort of twigged that, but that was just like that was real validation. I just felt, wow, that was just fantastic. Enough respect for Fishbone.
Yes.
It was great to play with them.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and that was wild seeing Angelo and Chris out on stage with you all. Any idea what year you discovered Fishbone?
I came over to Los Angeles in 1980 for a holiday. I'd met some people. We toured in the States early, sort of February, March, 1980. We did our residency at the Whiskey A Go Go.
Right.
But I met made some friends, so that I went to visit in later in the year, and they were telling me that there was this group called Fishbone that I might want to check out. And then when general public came over in 84, we did an outside show at UCLA, and they were there. They didn't play, but they were kind of there, sort of hanging around. So I was aware of them. Yeah.
Did it happen to be on that trip out here in 1980 when I think it was an interview that I listened to with you and Mark Wasserman? But is that when you also discovered the On Club?
Yes, quite possibly. Yeah. Yes, I think. Yes, because these people who I was staying with, they said, "Oh, you've got to go down to the On Club and blah blah blah," and the Box Boys were playing.
Yes.
Wow.
I think
history.
Yeah. And but then the following year, the Specials were touring in America. This was like the last tour we ever did, which was like August 1981, and several members of the band, not including me, I must say, visited the On Club. Jerry and I had gone down to have a little holiday in Mexico, but I think other guys from the band went to the On Club as well.
Yeah, it's such an important historical venue from the early days of Mod. Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say about the Musex event, Horace, is Jesse Wagner from Aggrolites. I know how honored he was to play with you.
He was great. He was really lovely, and he's yeah. I mean, but we have a lot in common. We have this music in common, and that just sort of binds everybody together. It was great. I love the fact that there were no egos. It's just like, okay, here's the song, let's play it, and it was fabulous like that. But it was that I was kind of walking on air for several weeks afterwards. It was
right.
Absolutely tremendous.
Well, I encourage everyone who whether you were there or not there, we do have some really good footage that I shot from that event on our channel. So I encourage that. Junior, over to you with the next.
Yes, sir. Let's start by talking about your love for art. When did it begin, and how has it evolved over time? And we also want to encourage fans, and this is a public service announcement. You could even call it a commercial. We also want to encourage fans to check out HoracePanterArt.com for some impressive and really and truly amazing and interesting artwork. A fascination with cassette. So I just want to get people want to check out your work.
I went to art school. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do when I was 16, 17. I wouldn't have minded being a rock star. That would be pretty good. But that was like, I lived in a little provincial market town in England where, that wasn't really on the cards. But doing art was kind of good. I could sort of be creative or use my imagination. So I ended up going to art college. And eventually I did an art degree, and that's at Coventry, and that's why I moved to Coventry, and then I met Jerry Dammers. He was in the year below me at college, so I had a cursory art education, but I learned to play a bass guitar, which was worked for me. But the art was always there. It was always the sort of the something to do when I wasn't playing music. And like being in a pop group was great because I got to travel, so I could go to all these fantastic art galleries. When we first went to New York, everybody else went out night clubbing, but I went to bed early because the next day I went to the Guggenheim and I went to the Museum of Modern Art. You know what I mean? And that sort of and going to Los Angeles, I could go on up to LACMA on Wilshire Boulevard, and then more recently I've been able to go to the Broad. But art's always been something that was around that I was really interested in. So Specials for a while I was an art teacher. I worked in a special needs school as an art teacher just for about 10 years. So I was starting to make my own pieces, do my own artwork. But then specials reformed, and then I had all this downtime between tours, and I started painting these pictures. And my wife, bless her, because these are pretty good. I wonder if we can sell these. And I'm like, get out of here, don't be silly. But no, she started taking around some places, and people started to buy them. So it just it just developed from there, yeah. So, but I'm into pop art. So, that thing about elevating the mundane. I loved all those pop artists, Lichtenstein, Warhol, blah, blah, blah. Whereas Warhol has the soup can, I have the humble audio cassette. So I paint pictures of audio, but it's not just what I paint. I'm really fascinated by America. I've always loved it. And I love all the buildings and the signs and stuff that you don't see in England, and so a lot of people, my friends in Los Angeles, have says, it takes somebody from the other side of the world to come over and point out these fantastic buildings, which we take for granted, but I don't. I'm like, Randy's Donuts, that place down by the airport. Yes. That's fantastic. That's amazing. You'd never see that in England. I think it's gorgeous. And there was a Chevrolet dealer, Felix.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I've painted that. It's a lot of the places that I've done apparently have been knocked down.
Interesting.
Since I'm kind of documenting, this city that I've, the side of the world.
And what's crazy, Horace, is a lot of people maybe don't or not aware of their creative side, you and talent, and you not only are an incredible and influential bass player, but an incredible artist. So
well, that's very kind. That's very kind of you. Well, you got to have a hobby, haven't you? Yeah.
No, it's true. So speaking of bass,
yes,
who are some of your biggest bass influences?
Let's see. I suppose the first bass player that I really listened to sit with any sort of seriousness as an individual player would be Andy Fraser, who was the bass player in Free. Yes. I don't know if you're aware of them. They were sort of British blues rock from like 1969, 70, 71, 72. He played a very simple and very direct bass line, very, very funky, but in that sort of blues rock kind of thing. I think when I started to get a bit more self-confidence and learned to dance, then it was like, why was it that I danced to Tamla Motown records and not the Mamas and Papas or the Lover or whatever? And it was, and so then that was a bit of research, and that's James Jamerson, that I think any bass player worth his salt of my generation would credit. And then of course Booker T and the MGs, and then you've got Donald Duck Dunn. Although he didn't play on Green Onions, it was a guy called Louis Steinberg who played on Green Onions.
Okay.
So, but it was the groove guys that I think, people would ask me who my favorite bass player was, but I wasn't so much into the bass player, but like the rhythm section. It's like Uriel Jones and James Jamerson, or Al Jackson and Donald Duck Dunn and that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of I then sort of went on to a lot of the blues guys. I love the Fabulous Thunderbirds. Keith Ferguson and Peter Buck were fantastic, and Chris Layton and Tommy Shannon, who worked with Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Wow.
Sort of so I sort of moved on a bit from there. But I think originally it was the soul guys, Yeah.
Indeed.
Interesting enough. So what was your first impression of Jerry when you met him in college? Jerry Dahmer, to give him his credit, full credit. Recently demised, right?
He was very eccentric, and he came into college. And he wore this red tartan suit, really outlandish. And he had like sideburns, mutton chop sideburns, like that. And he came in, and I remember him walking into the studios one time, and he was singing this song. He went, "I shot the sheriff," and it's like this was 1973, and like nobody had ever heard that song before. And what the dickens is he on about? So, but he was a real character. I don't think he didn't do much work at art college. He drank an enormous amount, but he was a student. He was stupid. We all were. You know what I mean? And then I think he eventually, his work was cartoons. He did animations, and he asked me and a friend of mine to do some recording to go with these animations. So he knew that I played bass, and I knew that he could play piano. And then when I finished college, I know, and then when he finished college, which was the year after I did, he wrote me he sent me a postcard. He didn't know my address. He didn't know my phone number. I don't think I had a phone. And he said, I'm trying to get, a group together. Do you want to be in it? So it was, so that was basically how it started. Yeah, because we all lived in student accommodation, in absolute squalor. So that and we didn't have, and if you're lucky, there was a phone in the hall, sort of shared by like six bed sits or whatever. So we didn't have a phone. So yeah, he used to send me postcards and whatever, and I would go into town and catch a bus out to where he lived, and this, that, and the other, or we'd meet in the pub or whatever. That was basically my first impression of it.
And then how soon after that time period did you meet the rest of the guys and win the Coventry Automatics, which became the Special stuff?
Well, the first iteration was a drummer called Silverton Hutchinson, who was from Barbados, and Linval Golding, Al and Jerry. I think that the three of us, we had a singer who called Tim Strickland. And that was the first band that performed. Then I think Tim was replaced by Terry Hall, and then Roddy Radiation joined, and then Silverton quit. Oh no, and then Silverton quit. But Neville had joined on stage as an extra vocalist, and then Brad joined. So that's how it sort of gradually. But that took about 2 years. It wasn't something that happened overnight, not by any stretch of the imagination. But it was quite a. So Linval. I say this every now and again. Linval was the first black person that I ever met in my life. I was an art student. Black people didn't go to art college in the 70s. I was a middle class art student. I come from a little provincial East Midlands town in England. I had no experience of other cultures really. There was a couple of Asian kids when I was doing my pre-degree course or whatever. So Linval was the first black person that I ever met, and him and Silverton, the original drummer, which was extraordinary. I thought his name was Limvelt, like the Veld in South Africa. Because I'd never seen it written down, and Jerry would go, "Oh, this is Linval," and he'd go, "Hi, my name's Linveld." And I just, okay, Limvelt. Right. And I worked with him for 2 years before I realized that his name was actually Linval. It was really embarrassing. But I kind of muddled along with him. He kind of tolerated my bass playing, and I was like really in awe of him and Silverton, because they were the real deal. He wanted to play reggae. These were the guys who could do it. So I very much felt like the pretender, if you like, joining those guys. And Linval and Desmond Brown, who was his buddy, who was the keyboard player in the Selector, they used to come around my little flat in Regent Street, with like sort of 7-inch singles and put them on and go, listen, the bass go like that, because I was like, I understand, you know. So I had reggae lessons from Linval, you know. So it was difficult. It's all very well Jerry sort of trying to explain it to me, but these were the, you know, I got it from the horse's mouth from those guys. It was an uphill struggle, you know. Yeah, but when the specials first started, it's kind of we were influenced by reggae, but we were influenced by punk, and but we could play funk. We could play the punks in Coventry were like several years younger than us. Terry was 19 when he joined the specials. We were all like 23, 24. We'd paid our dues. We'd played social clubs and, you know, and Air Force bases and all that sort of stuff. We knew how to play. So it was kind of, you know, but so it was interesting times because you could get away with being as experimental as you liked back then. We wanted to do something that combined punk and reggae. But it wasn't until we learned to play ska, or that the reggae songs we could play faster and the punk songs we could play slower, and they had that danceability. So we didn't start by learning to play ska. We were trying to mix up reggae and punk unsuccessfully. I must admit, because nobody was interested in us at all until Jerry brought along that Prince Buster's Greatest Hits album to one of our rehearsal sessions and said, let's learn this song. You know, it's called Monkey Man, you know, let's, and You're Wondering Now and stuff like that. And it all started to make sense then. That's a potted history of like where it got from A to B.
Right. Additionally, it's been said that the pioneers played a very instrumental role in terms of the sense and direction that the specials took. In addition to Linval teaching you or assisting you with the bass line.
Yeah.
The pioneers among other bands?
Well, I think it was, you see, reggae was always around in England. It was once or twice a year there would be a reggae song in the charts. Right. So it was like Double Barrel or, you know, Long Shot Kick the Bucket or Uptown Top Ranking or Hurt So Good, Susan Cadogan. So it was always around, and I think, and everybody knew Long Shot Kick the Bucket. So it was just like, I think they were just one of the many bands. I think probably Toots and the Maytals were, you know, and of course Bob Marley. That live Bob Marley album from the Lyceum was like a firm favorite. With all the, I think that was a real sort of unifying tune, you know, album.
Yes.
So yes, I'm not saying that the pioneers weren't influential, but they were one of many.
They were one of several.
One of the many.
But there was like that kind of Trojan kind of what was called skinhead reggae, and then there was like Bob Marley, which was more of the sort of the Rastafaris or the conscious stuff, and dub, of course, you know,
right. Horace, can you share some memories from the famous two-tone tour of '79 that the specials did with the Selected Madness? I think that was around a 40-city UK tour.
Yeah.
Anything memorable sticks out from that one?
I always say that it was like a school outing, but with no teachers.
No chaperone.
It was fantastic. It was like we were at the top of our game because we'd been playing in England for 9 months or whatever. Madness hadn't been going too long,
right?
So they were learning on their feet, as were the Selector. The Selector were all like seasoned musicians, but they hadn't kind of gelled as that they were. So we were just like out there, amazing. Madness, I always remember that like 1 gig in 4 was fantastic, but they were still learning their craft, and the Selector were coming up very fast on the outside, you know.
Right.
But this was just like the right place at the right time. It was £2.50, £2.50 to see these 3 bands in 1979, and but it was just at that time when two-tone was just taking over the whole country. But the atmosphere in those dance halls was fantastic, as absolutely amazing. So you'd have anything from like 1,500 to 2,500 people.
Wow.
And everybody went mad. Even the bar staff were dancing. It was incredible.
Yeah,
I know Jerry has said this. He said that he's never seen anything quite like that since. And I must admit, I agree with him. It was fantastic. But it was in the days where you didn't have crash barriers. You know what I mean? The audience were right in your face, right at the lip of the stage. There was nothing. There was nothing backstage. There were no riders. There weren't even towels, or anything like that.
Right.
It was just like this bare room. And every band had like 7 members in it, so there were like sort of 30 odd people crammed into these really silly little rooms backstage. It was absolute chaos.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic because it was so exciting. And the music we played was just like it had that energy of punk. The Specials had toured with the Clash the previous year. And can I just sidetrack a bit here?
No, please.
Oh, absolutely.
We got on this Clash tour. We did 3 weeks with the Clash in 1978, and the big cliche is we started as we started the tour as civilians, but ended it as a band.
Super.
It was kind of our rock and roll boot camp. But we were able to sit side stage every night and watch the Clash do their stuff. And it's like,
they would just, yeah.
This was like in 1978, and it was kind of right. Well, if we're going to work, if we're going to be good, we've got to be at least as good as these guys.
Right.
So the Clash, if you like, set the benchmark for a Specials performance. It had a lot of people go on about, the Scatolites and Toots and the Maytals and whatever. And I'm not saying they haven't got an influence, but there's as much of the Clash in the Specials as there is the Scatolites.
Right. So if you all had not toured and opened and sat side stage and watched the Clash, right, things could have been very different.
I wouldn't say very different, but I think that was I think you may be right. Not that we would have put on a crap show, but I think it would have had nothing like the intensity that it had when it first started. Wow. And also we had Neville, who was just this wild performer, whereas Terry was very much this aloof kind of Johnny Rotten, snarly kind of, static frontman, whereas Neville was kind of all over the stage. And so it just sort of, that's how the Specials live show formed, and that's what we took out in 1979, and it was just the most exciting thing to do. It really was.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. I want to just memory juggling, take you back to the Specials performance on Saturday Night Live in 1980. It was really and truly important, an influential moment, especially in the United States for bands. A lot of bands drew from that experience. Juggle your memory and take us back to 1980. Saturday Night Live in the US.
All right. 2 things. Well, we were on I think we just recorded the single Rat Race, and we were just about to go into the studio to record our the second album. So it was, the band was starting to sort of fracture, and we weren't happy campers, and it's like, well, Dickens, we've got to go to New York. Oh, what are you talking about? You're upset because you've got to go to New York. It was amazing. So we basically went to New York for the weekend. Jerry hated it because it was a limo came to pick us up from the airport. No, I'm going in the van with the equipment. I'm not traveling in a limo. Okay, fine. And we got to this really expensive hotel. I'm not staying in this really expensive hotel. Well, actually, the rooms are probably really cheap, and it's a deal with the. But anyway, so it was. So all that sort of like anger and resentment and but stupidity, for want of a better word, came out in the performance, which was quite fantastic. It was again, it was pretty real. Now, we did it, and then carried on snarling, went back to England, and then started recording our album. That was a waste of time. What do we do that for? Fast forward 10 years, and I'm in Special Beat, and we're in America, and supporting us is the Toasters.
Right.
And all these kids will be coming up to me after the show saying, "Hey, we saw the Specials on Saturday Night Live. Wow, that was amazing." And then, of course, it got repeated, and then so people were sort of phoning all their mates up, "Hey, the Specials are on Saturday Night Live again." and I never knew anything about
no
it.
Idea,
No idea. So this pebble that we dropped in the ripples became this kind of tidal wave. You know what I mean? And then in 1991, at the end of when I left Special Beat, the last gig we did, we played in Anaheim, and supporting us was this 9-man ska band fronted by this little girl, and they were called No Doubt. You know what I mean? but it took all that time, that one performance in Saturday Night Live, and like I say, I never knew. It wasn't until 10, 11, 12 years later that I sort of realized how influential that was.
I've heard many people talk about it. I know our mutual friend Mark Wasserman has shared, what that performance and how that influenced him as a bass player, and you and everything that you've done. You mentioned No Doubt, Tony Canal, obviously. There's a lot of love for you there, Horace. I mean, you guys came out really swinging, and those two songs you did on SNL. I mean, thankfully now people can see it on online, but it was just incredible, and that's wild to hear you say that. So fast forward a little bit now. You mentioned sitting on the side of the stage with the Clash, watching the Clash. Did you think that moving forward in general public that you would be doing anything with Mick Jones? I want to hear that, but also want to hear about how general public came about.
Okay. Originally, when Dave and Roger left the Beat, they wanted to form a band with Mick Jones and Topper Headon. They wanted, that was one of Wakeling's plans. So Mick Jones was kind of, on the scene already. The Beat and the Specials did some tours, did a tour of Ireland early 1981, and I went ahead of the tour and met Dave Wakeling in Dublin, and we did some press together, and we got on really well. We got on. I found him very easy to get on with. We did these shows, great, blah 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 blah, and then a couple of years later, the Beat split up, 1983. And I was like, and I wasn't in a band at the time. So I phoned Dave up. I said, "Dave, okay, I am your bass player." And he was going, "Well, actually, Roger's playing the bass at the minute." And I'm like, "What's he doing playing the bass for? He's a front man. That's stupid." So he's like, "Okay." So then, so I went over, and we all sat down and talked and blah blah blah. And the drummer was Stoker, who was the original drummer in Dexys Midnight Runners. Right. Amazing drummer, really powerful, lovely bloke. And the keyboard player was Mickey Billingham, who was also from Dexys Midnight, but the second iteration. He co-wrote "Come On Eileen." Wow. So we had this. And Roger's going. Roger, who is a great bass player, was a great bass player. Don't get me wrong. Wow. He got the bass that Shuffle used in the Beat that played on all those songs. He owned that. But he was a very good bass player. Very sort of intuitive, all round musician. He played drums pretty good as well. But he much preferred doing his helicopters around the stage than sort of wielding an instrument. So that's basically how that came. I think general public sort of the idea was that it would capitalize on the success that the English Beat had.
Yes.
up until 1983, because Dave, I Confess and all that kind of stuff from Special Beat Service, which wasn't a great deal of ska in there. And I think Tenderness had already been written, or it was being demoed, and it was like, well, okay, this is going to be a hit, so let's form a group so we can play this song. So it was and I think they tongue in cheek describe themselves as the new wave Hall and Oates.
Right. I read that. Right. Yeah. It is wild to think, though, and I'm one of them that actually discovered two-tone through general public. I first heard Tenderness right on modern, or whatever I guess it was modern rock, but it was the new wave stations out here, right, in Southern California. Heard about them. Oh, Dave and Roger. Well, what group were they in? What group was Horace in? So it was wild to see that, and I'm sure that was the case with a number of fans. And
general public were great. I mean, the first album was really good.
Yes.
And we were and Dave and Roger were like MTV darlings, weren't they, in '84 for a while with Tenderness and all that stuff. And we did some great shows. We especially in California. I remember we did some fabulous shows. Boston, I think was, but all those places where the English beat had a big fan base. But I think also sort of we started to go to Texas and the Midwest and that sort of stuff, because we had that MTV stuff. But then we made a second album, and not only that, but IRS, which was our label, which was distributed by A&M, then got distributed by MCA, and MCA didn't know how to promote the band or whatever. So all that sort of legwork that mainly Dave Wakeling had done, sort of charming radio stations via A&M, who distributed IRS, just weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of catching up to do. And don't tell anybody, but the second album wasn't very good.
I have heard people say that. Yes.
So is that when there's a special beat? So that's the special beat, right? The short special beat. That was in
yes. Then
different.
I left.
For clarity,
General Public finished in, as I think it was '87. Then I worked with Ranking Roger for a while. He had a solo album out called Radical Departure. I played on that. We toured a little bit in America, but that pretty much sank like a stone, to be honest. Special Beat, I was 1990. That's when that started, and that was Neville Staples, myself, John Bradbury from the Specials, and Ranking Roger, because Roger had been over to America and he was aware that there was this burgeoning ska scene coming up. So and Special Beat was kind of a show band that played special songs and beat songs to mainly Americans. And we had a riot. Again, we had a really it was just at the right time, and we played a lot of colleges. And somebody took I forget where we were, Iowa or somewhere, in this big college ballroom, and somebody took some video, and the whole place is dancing. It was really, really good. But you had the Specials rhythm section. That was me and Brad, and you had Roger and Neville worked fantastically well together. And we had this guy Finney, white guy, who did a very passable Terry Hall stuff, and there was with subsidiary musicians. There was a keyboard player, Sean Flowerdew, and then a guitar player, and we did passable versions, but it was good fun. The next year we incorporated a horn section, and we played again, but then I quit in '91. The band continued till '93. I think they did the Skavuvi tour.
Right.
Yeah, but by then, ska had really started to break out, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because you'd had the Toasters, Fishbone, Let's Go Bowling, Bim Scalabim, and all those, all those people. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? That was 1990. That was 35 years ago.
Which is wild to think.
35 years before 1995 was 1960. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
You
know it's wild.
1960, you know what I mean? Elvis Presley, you know, yeah.
Right. Just before ska was, invented, so to speak, right, in Jamaica.
No, ska was around.
59.
Started a more R&B.
Right.
It
Yeah.
officially became ska when
Yeah.
Lloyd Knibbs now changed the rhythm.
Right.
But
Right.
it was around.
Yeah. So Horace, you mentioned some of those US bands. Uh Any others that you were aware of that you were impressed by? Obviously, you mentioned Fishbone. You mentioned how you all played with No Doubt. Let's Go Bowling, Toasters, Bim Scala Bim.
We played with a band in Fresno called Khyber Rifles, and I think
Right.
they became Let's Go Bowling.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. I was always like when I heard sort of bands like the Mighty Boss Tones, it's like they didn't swing. They was very four square, and the horns were like, well, they were like marching band horns. They didn't have the Scatolites swing. You know what I'm talking about, Junor,
Yes.
don't you? You know, it's the difference between like Hepcat and and the Mighty Boss Tones.
Right.
You know, one.
Yes.
But
Yes,
it's like,
night and day.
hang on. When I seem to remember when Toots first heard our version of Monkey Man, he didn't like that either. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's like, who am I to tell these guys who are influenced by me how they should play it? You know, this is how they, this is how we interpreted those songs. This is how they interpreted our songs. Carry on, So really, Horace, shut up and be thankful that these people, are making a career out of playing this, and they're also acknowledging the people where it came from in the first place.
Of course,
all those people back in Jamaica. So yeah. That's
but in the final analysis, I think guys like Toots and all those guys, appreciate the fact that you guys cover the song, because a lot of times it's sell in larger volume than the original, and they get the royalty.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I'm very pleased with that.
No,
yeah,
that's true.
I think it was always fine. The thing was finding actually whether they got the royalties or not. There was a story going around when Gangsters first came out, when we first signed to Chrysalis, that there were half a dozen people banging on Chrysalis's door claiming that they owned the rights to Al Capone by Prince Buster. You know what I mean? That this was like, Jamaica music business, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Horace, when also during the 80s and 90s, as you would tour other parts of Europe or maybe even other parts of the world outside of North America, did you see the growth of that people call it third wave ska, but like, the other ska bands popping up? Did you notice that increase?
Yes, there were, when we'd play in Hamburg and there'd be some sort of local band playing ska, or there'd be a reggae band that was, populated mainly by white kids, Yeah, so it was there was that. So yeah, it became a thing, didn't it?
It did.
Yes. I want to shift focus slightly and ask you to say a few words about some people who you know very well. Terry Hall, John Bradbury, Rankin Roger, and the teacher of legends, Rico.
Who would you like me to start with? Okay, Rico. Let's do.
Maybe
let's
Rico.
Start, let's start with Rico. Rico, I think, was the most serious, dedicated musician I think I've ever met.
Wow.
I can second that.
He just loved that. Got a lovely story. We were on tour, and we booked into our hotel, and everyone goes off to their rooms and stuff like that. And then for reasons that I don't know, about half an hour later, I'm back down in reception, and there's this bloke at reception, and he's complaining. He goes, I'm trying to get some rest, but there's someone playing a trombone in the room next door. And it was Rico, of course. He was practicing. We never practiced. You know what I mean? We went shopping, or we went down the bar. So the moment, any spare time that Rico had, he was playing. He was practicing. He was lovely.
Yeah.
And it was after when the special split. Jerry and I Jerry, Brad, and I did a little tour with Rico in Europe, just playing little jazz clubs and student bars and stuff like that, playing Rico's material, and it was gorgeous. It was really good because we'd spent the past 3 years as like rock stars and whatever, and now we didn't have to worry about all that. We just had to play the music, and it was fantastic. It was a really liberating experience. I really love that.
And
then so what?
You said you were playing jazz, so like traditional jazz, or
no. We were playing. We played jazz clubs. But we were playing Rico's material.
Oh wow,
we were playing stuff from Man from Waurika.
Yeah,
and
that's
other songs, and it was lovely. It was great to play that to play that stuff. It was really good. And then he went on to work with Jules Holland. You know Jules Holland?
Yes, Jules.
And he worked with him for the next like 25 years or so.
And Junior and I had the pleasure, that's where this poster's from, had the pleasure of working with Rico on a few occasions, and just such a sweet man. But yeah, Junior experienced his dedication and his practicing.
He credits everything he know to Dan Drummond, his teacher.
Yes, yeah.
Everything. He said Dan would practice 24/7. Blowing the trombone, and he encouraged Rico to take solo. As a matter of fact, the couple of songs that Rico mentioned, he said whenever he's playing, Dan Drummond is always saying take a solo, and he made a couple of songs very, 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 very famous.
Absolutely.
One I can think of, I think, is Dan the Living Star.
Yeah,
and a couple of songs that he did for you guys. Always Dan Drummond, Rico take a solo. Rico practice. Rico take a solo.
No, he was
essentially paid off.
Yeah, no, he was great. I mean, he really put us on our it was embarrassing sometimes, when he would talk. Well, about this music, don't you? And we were like, well, no, you have to. No, it was you knew you were in the presence of greatness. Who else should we talk about?
How about
John Bradbury
or Bradbury?
Roger. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, Jerry came to me one time and he said, "I've seen this great group over in Birmingham. They've got this little kid who just jumps on stage and goes I forget what he, but he was really impressed by the beat. I thought he was great. He lived for the stage. Yes. He never. So most of us had a day job at some stage. We left school. We did something, and then we joined our prospective band. Roger never had a job in his life. Wow. He went from school and he joined the beat. He was great. He never had to do that. He just totally lived on music, which was fantastic, really.
Of course,
I think, as I said, he was a very quite a competent musician. He could play bass really good. He learned to play keyboards. He could play drums. He was one of the earliest people to get into all the music technology, all the computer stuff as well. He really sort of, because I think he was very influential, like Mick Jones, like that Big Audio Dynamite kind of involving sort of hip. So when electro reggae came out, he was well into that. So he was. There was the joke in general public was like, what's small, shiny, and makes a noise? And I go, I don't know. He says, neither do I, but Ranking Rogers just bought one. You know what I mean? It was. So he was always into devices and new bits of kit for to make noises. Yeah, it was when General Public split. We were all. I was kind of like, okay, without a gig, and I was expecting Dave Wakeling to call me up and say, Horace, I'm going to get a band together, to play these songs, because we played. Dave wanted to play acoustically, or what I mean, organically, and I thought Roger would be the guy who'd just go and make a solo album on his computers, and that sort of stuff. But it was Roger who phoned me up and says, Horace, I want to get a band together. I want you to be in it,
Wow.
which was surprising. Whereas, so Dave went off with the computers and Roger got a band together. You know, so we did this album called Radical Departure. But then it didn't work out that well. But then he went off and did all sorts of stuff. I think he joined a version of Big Audio Dynamite.
He did, right? Yeah.
And I think he went to America and learnt about this new ska revival that was going on, and was instrumental in putting Special Beat together.
Yeah. So then he did.
I think he lived out here in Southern California, right, Eric?
So
he might have.
I think he lived in Southern California.
Yeah, that I don't know, but I do remember meeting Roger when he did a little all-star tour. He played Reggae in the River in Northern California once. I got to talk with him some, but yeah, definitely talent. He had a good. I enjoyed his book that came out a few years back.
The Daniel Rachel one, yeah.
Yes.
We don't want to leave out John Bradbury.
No. Well, he was the new kid. We'd done all the we toured with the Clash with our original drummer Silverton. We paid our dues, and then Christmas 1978, Silverton quit. So it's like, oh shit,
what do we do?
What are we going to do now? But then, we knew Brad. He played with Neil Davis in this Transposed Men band. And he played on the original Selector song. Right. So he was always sort of in the background. So it was just like, well, we'll bring him in. You see, Silverton didn't like playing ska because it was old man music. This was 1978. Music must forward. See it? And Linval didn't like the idea too, but Jerry was very sort of persuasive and got, that's the music my parents listened to. I'm not playing the music my parents listened to. What are you talking about? Go on. So Silverton quit. Whereas John Bradbury didn't have any stuff about playing ska. Right. Or reggae, because he could play ska, he could play reggae, and he could play rock and roll as well. So he could switch in between the sort of the fast 4/4 drumming through to one drop reggae or a Lloyd Nibbs kind of ska thing. So it was, and I don't think we actually became the Specials until John Bradbury joined.
Oh, okay.
Because that's when we started playing ska. That's and we bought all our two-tone suits.
Makes sense.
And did all that stuff, So that was the beginning of 1979. We recorded Gangsters about this time, early January 1979, and then by the end of that year, we were kings of the world, which was yeah. But so he could swing. And he could he bridged that gap between playing rock and roll and playing ska and reggae. And I think he was a lot better drummer than he realized, and he didn't like to be acknowledged as such. It's weird. When we reformed, we would do some gigs in festivals in Europe, and quite often we'd be on the same bill as LCD Sound System.
Yes,
you know them.
Sure.
Yeah, I heard it. Yes, they severe like New York disco guys, and I bump into them because I really like them, and they said, hey, we spend the first 3 songs on the side of stage, and we just look at that drummer, man, he's fantastic, he's really good. And I mentioned this to Brad, and he was like, whoa, no. He didn't want to know. He couldn't take the
accolades. Wow.
the accolades from those guys. Me, I thought that was fantastic. That but he would know. And sometimes I thought he would play far too fast, and we'd be playing something that my bass lines are complicated enough, but then playing that fast, and I go, Brad, slow down. And he'd look at the audience, and he'd go, look. And the audience was going absolutely mental. So of course, you have to
catch up with the audience, right?
Because that's what the audience dictated. So yeah, more power to him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So in a sense, he elevated your playing.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Terry Hall?
Terry wasn't the original singer in the Specials. He was he fronted this punk band in Coventry called Squad, and they were the real deal. They were, whereas we in the Specials, we grew up in the 60s. We grew up on, the Kinks, the Spencer Davis Group, Tamla Motown, blah, blah, blah. Terry grew up with the Sex Pistols, the Clash, and Patti Smith. You know what I mean? They were his things. I think there was a lot of other pop then, but that at that time, the Sex Pistols and the Clash were what wanted him to get on a stage. But he was extremely charismatic even then. Sometimes they'd only play for like 20 minutes, and Terry would have his back to the crowd because he was bored or whatever. You know what I mean? It was typical sort of punky stuff, and we would share a stage with them as often as not as we were coming up. And then one night, Jerry, drunk, phoned me from some club in Birmingham saying, "I've just seen this great vocalist, Terry. Oh, we've got to get them in the band." And we did. And excuse me. And there he was. But he very much learnt his trade in public. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he could practice being Terry Hall before the Specials. You know what I mean?
Right.
Plus, he had to compete with Neville and all the other little chaos that was going on. But he very quickly became this very charismatic frontman. And I was really thrilled when. Well, I wasn't thrilled when the band split up, but I could see that it was obviously going to happen. But it was great that he just continued, and he made this really, really creditable career as a singer-songwriter, because he started writing songs in the Specials. He wrote he wrote some lyrics for Man at CNA, and he wrote Friday Night and Saturday Morning. So that was his first attempts at writing, and so he just, you could see his songwriting just get better and better and better with all these other bands that he was in. So, but I didn't really know him back in the day, because there were 7 of us. There's a lot of people to get to know, and to, I suppose at the if I was close to anyone, it would have been Jerry, because we were at college together, and Terry was quite shy. People say that he was like, that he was arrogant or whatever. No, he just kept himself to himself. The reason he didn't talk was he didn't have anything to say.
Right, and sometimes that can come across different.
Yeah, exactly. But once we when we reformed in 2009, of course, we're like sort of 35 years older. We've learned a bit about stuff. You know what I mean? We've been married. We have kids. You know what I mean? We're dare I mention it, adults. So if you like, I met Terry again, and we got on really well. I think that was, we were at the end of our tenure, where it was just the 3 of us left. We were really quite tight. Yeah. But I'd cuss off Linval to Terry, and I'd cuss off Terry to Linval, and I'm sure Terry would cuss off me to whatever. But if anybody else did, it's like, hey, watch it.
Of course, yes. I could.
Yeah,
I could do that.
Yeah. Families do that. Families do that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. True. True.
And it was and so I think, which I think made it even more tragic, his passing, because he was this time round a really good friend. You know what I mean? There was that sort of evolving friendship, and we both bonded over This Is Spinal Tap.
Mm-hmm.
You know the movie?
Yes, of course.
Me and him, we because everything in this business is related to Spinal Tap. Right. No matter what it is, there is a Spinal Tap thing. So that was really a cool thing. They've made Spinal Tap too.
I have heard that. Yeah.
I wait with bated breath.
I can't wait for that other. Yeah. Well, no, and Horace, thank you for sharing those thoughts of your friends and bandmates. And I know that there's so much more to talk about. You're, speaking of which, your book, Scott for Life, A Personal Journey with the Specials, came out
Yeah.
in 2008. And we absolutely encourage our viewers and listeners to check that out. It's a wonderful book. Do you feel that between your book, some of the other book, Daniel Rachel just released one as well over the last couple of years. Roger has one. Pauline has one. You've done different interviews, but do you feel that the two-tone story and the story of the Specials has been told well?
When I wrote my book, one of the things that I said first off was we were seven very different people, and I think we had seven very different experiences. So you could mention the same fact to seven different people, and they would have seven different interpretations of it.
Right. True.
And I said that from the off. That's why I call the book A Personal Journey with the Specials. I did not write the Specials autobiography.
Right.
I wrote how I saw it. My take on things is quite different from Neville's take on things.
Right. Of course,
you know. Yeah. And I think if Jerry ever gets to writing one, it will be very different from mine. So I think there are the facts of what the Specials did, and so perhaps everything else just has to be this nice, cozy little myth. So let's just keep it as this sort of
right.
This sort of nice. So I don't know what the answer is to your question.
No, it's fair. Yeah. Well, people absolutely should read your book. This is now a hypothetical one. Which
mine is the best, by the way.
Oh,
my book is the best, by the way. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. If people want a true account, and the most enjoyable one, yes, your book. Here's a hypothetical fun one. Are there any songs within the two-tone or adjacent catalog, so to speak, that you wish that the Specials would have recorded or performed?
From the recent iteration, I wanted us to do a version of Time Bomb by Rancid,
sure,
which would have been great. It would have been really, really. I thought that would have been so cool to sort of to acknowledge, a second wave ska band played by the Specials. Boof, I don't know. Breaking Down the Walls of Heartache or something. I think Dexys Midnight Runners did that. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I know we touch on briefly your experience as a teacher. Teaching.
Yes.
And one, if we, revisit that question, how rewarding is it for you? Are you still teaching? Was it something you did to get by? Send some clarification across.
Well, at the time, playing in pop groups was not very profitable. I mean, I got married in 1982. My son was born in 1987, and plus I was like in my late 30s, 40s. So priorities change. So I've got a family to support. I've got to put food in mouths. So perhaps it's about time to get the real job that my parents always wanted me to get. So I used my art degree finally to get a teaching qualification, and I honestly thought, Junior, that I would retire as a school teacher. I ended up working as an art teacher in a special needs school, and I thought that was that. I played in a little blues band at the weekend, around Coventry. It was great fun. And then Linval gave me the phone, the heads up and the phone call, and that was that. But yes, it was very much a necessity. Because I had to provide for my family, but it was doing something that it was back doing art. It was something that I was interested in, and I always said that teaching, having spent sort of like 15 years in the music business, was good experience for teaching children with special needs. That's supposed to be.
And was it by choice that you taught children with special needs?
Yes. I kind of fell into it, but I kind of thought that it suited me a bit better than teaching mainstream, because these kids were kind of different, and and you had to be sort of deal with them individually as opposed to a big mass of pupils, and I kind of I liked that. I could be I could be more myself.
Sure.
If you like, teaching a small number of special needs kids than I could if standing in front of 30 of them and turn to page 75, blah 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 blah.
A more personal, well, that's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Plus, I think this is going to sound dreadful. Once a month, this amount of money would magically appear in my bank account because I'd been, when you're a musician, as it's feast or famine, and you never know when the next, bit of money is coming in. So to have that regular income was a breeze. We moved up from the house where we're living in we bought this beautiful larger house in Coventry, which is like the art teacher's house, which we spent the next sort of 20 years in, which was fabulous. So that was lovely. That was good. So I don't regret any.
You no longer teach art on the side.
No. I paint for myself now.
And do you still play with any blues groups around?
Yes, there's a Welsh guitarist called James Oliver in Sane. He's kind of like a Roy Buchanan on speed. He's I play with him when he plays in the Midlands. I'm playing with some guys locally. It's a thing called the Dirt Road Band. It's an old friend of mine who was the guitar player in Dr. Feelgood for 32 years.
Wow.
And a Coventry drummer who I've known for a long time. So we get together and make a noise every now and again. So that's good for. So yes, I'm still playing.
That's great.
The last time I checked, you perhaps played in about 20 bands, and it seems that's a concern.
Say that again, Junior. I missed that.
Yeah, you played in about 20 bands, it seems, and you're still active from what I read.
Throughout your career.
I suppose so. Yeah. Yes. I'm sure a lot more people playing more, but no, I've always played music. It's always been the thing that's it's just kept me. Stuart Copeland said this to me once, which is a great way to start a sentence. He says, "Horace, musicians stay younger longer." So I've kind of taken that as my mantra. Definitely.
You and Stuart would make for an incredible rhythm section there. Horace, as we wrap up this interview, two more questions. Was it a difficult decision for you all when you reformed in 2009?
No.
A long time coming, or was it something that
I knew that it was on the cards because this was our 30th anniversary. There was a movement in 2004. I remember Limbaugh calling, and I had a phone call from Steve Blackwell's manager. But I just started this job, it was school teaching, and I'd finally got my feet under the table, and it was salaried, and it's like, and this is like. But then the 2009 thing just came, came at the right time.
Yes. And then.
So you have no regret leaving the classroom?
No. It was time. No, it was fun. It was fun. When it was good, it was really good, but it wasn't good all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're special needs children, so okay, they're small class sizes, but some of the children were very challenging indeed. So it wasn't, it wasn't like the sound of music every day.
No, understood. Yeah. Well, we're very thankful that you did reform, and then the second part of that question was, how difficult was it for you, Terry, and Linville to carry on, and actually Brad as well, right, to carry on post, or I should say after you had reformed?
Every year. Well, we got together in 2009 because I thought because we had an idea we didn't realize that the whole tour was going to sell out by lunchtime. It was just like, wow, you're joking, this is great. So we did that, and it's like, well, we could go to America. We've never been to Australia. We could go to Japan. But there's a promoter in Europe as well. So it had legs. Every year we do our touring, and it's like, well, do you think we can get away with it again? But I think it got to the stage where we were essentially the world's greatest specials tribute band. You know what I mean? Because we just played the old stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like we're 35 years older. This ain't 1979.
Sure.
We are not.
Right.
We're not 25. We're not. That we're 45. We're 55, and so we wanted to. Well, perhaps we could sort of make our own music. We could sort of put our stamp on something. And then Neville quit, and then Roddy quit, and then so that it left the four of us all facing in the same direction. So it's like, yeah, this is good. Then Brad died, which was like, oh, great. But then it took us a good 18 months to get ourselves back on our feet, and then it was like, okay, this is the time. This is when we could actually record some music. So I had some tunes, Limbar had some tunes, Terry had some tunes, and we just sort of got together, and we had the track record, and Island Records says, yeah, okay, we'll do it. So it took a while to establish our own musical identity, if you like, but I'm extremely glad that we did, because although we were always going to have to play Mrs. Sue Rudy and Too Much Too Young and Monkey Man and stuff like that, we needed something else for our sanity, for our souls, to keep our creativity going.
And there were two
I'm
solid albums that came out of that, right?
Yeah. Encore went to #1, which was amazing.
Yeah, right.
Which was absolutely incredible in England. I was thrilled with that.
Love that.
And then during COVID, we did the Protest Songs album, and we were just about to do another album when Terry got sick.
Right. Yeah, I think Roger from Aggrolites was going to work with you guys on that.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. We got the studio booked. We got the music was organized. Terry had been writing loads of lyrics, but then it didn't happen.
Yeah,
I heard through the grapevine. Yeah, that was very sad. It was very close actually to you guys recording the album when he expired.
Yeah, well, we were. It was, we got the studio books. Roger Rivas was going to produce it, and blah blah.
That was going to be his dream project.
Right.
Yeah. He's a lovely man.
When the group reformed, where were some of the amazing places you played outside of Europe?
We back in the day, we'd never gone to Australia. We'd never played there, so that was nice to go there.
The response then?
So what?
What was the response?
They loved us. Yeah, that was great, because a lot of it was old sort of expats, and it's like, if those people when we played in England, there'd be the people who saw us first time round. And there'd be their younger brothers who were too young to get to it, but their elder brothers had listen to this. But also the original fans, their children, who they, you know what I mean? So we had the all these different generations of people. So it was great to play all these places, but it was great to meet all these people. I mean, that the first show we played when we reformed, which was in Newcastle, it was like literally grown men crying. It was really funny. But then you get kids come up to you and go, I've listened to your music for 30 years, because my dad, every Sunday morning he'd put on this album, or he'd play these records all the time, and this music's been part of my life, which is fantastic. It's really
absolutely good. It must be such an incredible feeling.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, a lot of musicians here and fans alike really and truly credit the specials for their baptism into two-tone. Then they would dig deeper and get into reggae. And ska, and of course, rocksteady.
Yes, but like the Aggrolites and Hepcat and whatever those people, yeah.
Indeed, it's so true. Yeah. So
Yes, sir.
So looking ahead into 2025, the year has just started here. Horace, what's on the horizon for you?
Well, I'm playing with James Oliver. I've got 2 gigs with him next Monday and Tuesday. Then there's a Dirt Road Band rehearsal on the Wednesday, and we've got a Dirt Road Band gig on the 28th of January in Birmingham. So that's the current horizon, and then a few gigs throughout the year. I've got an art exhibition in Birmingham in February, and another one in Harrogate, which is a posh little town up north, later in the year. So yeah, okay.
Any plans to showcase your art in the Los Angeles area?
Oh gosh, from your lips to God's ears, Junior.
That would be amazing.
Let it manifest itself. We're here to accommodate you.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Horace, so I guess we reached our destination. Am I right?
One last question, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to any plans to do any more work with Linville coming up?
No, but you never say never.
There we go.
I've learned that you never say never. I haven't spoken to him for a while. I must admit I need to talk to him about because he's going to want to talk politics, because I haven't spoken to him since the election. So he's going to want to talk politics, I'm sure.
We saw him briefly. Junior, when was that? August. He was out here. He participated with Sarah Jane from the Body Snatchers on Daniel.
Yes, I was at the Daniel Rachel thing. Yeah.
And Junior moderated that. That was a nice one. We got to see Linville there, but
and he also took the stage and paid homage to the pioneers.
Oh, right, on this show here, right? So, yes. Yeah. Well,
give Linval a stage and he'll bomb it anytime.
I realize that, man. Yes.
Yeah. Horace, thank you for all your incredible contributions to the music that we all love, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us as well.
Okay. Eric, Junior, thank you both very much.
Yes, and special thanks to everyone. Thanks first. And please subscribe to our podcast series and YouTube channel. Follow us at History of LA Ska on Instagram, and join our Facebook group. Additionally, I want to plug your website again. So it's HoracePanterat.com.
HoracePanter.com. You got it.
Yes. Right.
Junior, thank you. Horace, thank you very much. We appreciate everyone's support. We're going to leave you with this. Please do your part to celebrate and preserve the scene that we all love. Come out, put on your dancing shoes, and enjoy yourself. Horace, be well. A wonderful 2025 to you. Junior,
thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you again soon. Much love and be well.
Bye.
Yes, indeed.
Bye-bye now. Take care.